Hello! Welcome back. I decided to do a part two for Want to Know How I Know Your Res? Hopefully, this go round, you will chuckle a little bit harder. Here we go.
Want to know how I know your res? You spend your kids' per cap on you. Want to know how I know your res? You think Creator gifted you with a good woman because she takes care of your kids. Want to know how I know your res? You think Creator gifted you with a good man because he washes the dishes once a month. Want to know how I know your res? You say you're outgoing, but you fail to mention that's only because you get drunk. Want to know how I know your res? Your oldest kid can beat you up. Want to know how I know your res? You and your siblings have different last names. Want to know how I know your res? You're just rugged. Want to know how I know your res? Every time you make tuna sandwiches, you just start plumb missing her. Want to know how I know your res? You think the tribal cops are always harassing you every time you break tribal laws. Want to know how I know your res? All your exes are from the same family. Want to know how I know your res? You think your EBT card is like a Visa, accepted everywhere, but it's not. Want to know how I know your res? You gave her parents Walmart blankets during courtship, even though other dudes gave them horses, Pendletons, buffalo robes, even beadwork. Want to know how I know your res? You think you're ready for marriage because you know how to make Kraft mac and cheese with hot dogs. Want to know how I know your res? Every time you get pulled over on the res, you always get out of it because you say, I'm going to tell grandma. Want to know how I know your res? Whenever your kids ask for something around Christmas time, you always tell them it'll have to be part of their Christmas gift. Want to know how I know your res? You always spend your kids' per cap on your current dude and never on them. Want to know how I know your res? Occasionally, your mom will tell you to quit acting like your dad, but you don't know who that is. Want to know how I know your res? You either want to snag white women or your cousins. Want to know how I know your res? You just start plumb missing her when you see two dogs stuck together. Want to know how I know your res? There are 3 generations living at grandma's house. Hola! Want to know how I know your res? You have more secret kids than you do actual secrets. Want to know how I know your res? You're rocking a dad bod, but you never have your kids. Want to know how I know your res? You'd rather choose to be a stepdad to her kids than a real dad to yours. Hola! Want to know how I know your res? You have lost more stuff in pawn than you have actually in pawn. Want to know how I know your res? They know your name at the pawn shop. Hola! Want to know how I know your res? At your nephew's high school basketball game, you let it be known that you could be a better coach than his coach. Want to know how I know your res? You snag easy marks and think you have game. Want to know how I know your res? You snag on them young ones at the basketball tournament. Want to know how I know your res? Your ex is your new mom. Want to know how I know your res? You have an aunt who is 15 years younger than you. Want to know how I know your res? You say you got hoes, but grandma says they're your cousins. Want to know how I know your res? Your bratty kids always hit on your snag, but you don't say anything to them. But as soon as he asks them to stop, you jump in and scream, "You're not their dad!" Yeah! Want to know how I know your res? You always ask me to come over when your kids are with their dad. I mean, I'll still go, but... Want to know how I know your res? You caught chickenpox. You caught paternity cases. You caught DUIs. You caught diabetes. You caught hands. You even caught lice. You catch everything but feelings. Want to know how I know your res? You and your siblings have the same mom, but different dads. Want to know how I know your res? You question every guy that's friends with your mom as your potential dad. Want to know how I know your res? It's been years since you've been back to your ex's res. So, you question every kid that comes up to her as your potential kid. Want to know how I know your res? Because of your dad's man-whorish ways back in the day, you question every snag you get as a potential sibling. Oh la! Want to know how I know your res? You think you can fight because you're able to knock out drunk old dudes. Want to know how I know your res? You get extra indigenous around the white women. Want to know how I know your res? Whenever you get caught cheating, you claim they used medicine on you.
Well, there you have it. Part 2 of Want to Know How I Know Your Res. I do not know if there will be a part 3. It all depends if I'm able to come up with the lame jokes. More than likely, there will be a part 3 because my mediocre comedy skills are at their peak of mediocrity. And it's pretty easy to come up with lame jokes. So be on the lookout for a potential part 3 of Want to Know How I Know Your Res. I'll just probably beat this horse to death of lame jokes. Until next time, stay how you are. Just you. I dig that.